The United States and China are trying to prevent competition from boiling over into conflict. The leaders have talked for the first time in 7 months. Relations between both powers are tense, with differences on issues like trade and the pandemic. Live to Nick Harper for Washington's response in just a moment. But first, Olivia Xiong with the reaction from Beijing.
It's been 7 months since Chinese President Xi Jinping and his U.S. counterpart Joe Biden spoke over the phone, and Chinese state media described Friday's call as a candid and in-depth discussion between the two leaders, even as Sino-US tensions continue. According to the report, Mr. Xi raised concerns over Washington's China policy, which he said has resulted in serious difficulties for bilateral relations, adding that both countries and the world will benefit if China and the U.S. work together, but will suffer if the two confront each other.
中美应该是展现大格局，肩负大担当，坚持向前看，往前走，拿出战略胆识和政治魄力，推动中美关系尽快回到稳定发展的正确轨道，更好地造福两国人民和世界各国人民。
Outlining areas where they could work together, Mr. Xi said China and the U.S. can continue to engage in dialogue and promote cooperation on issues like climate change, COVID-19 prevention, and economic recovery. But he warned this has to be on the basis of respecting each other's core concerns and properly managing differences. China and the U.S. have been at loggerheads over a range of issues, from trade to the origins of COVID-19, the governance of Hong Kong, as well as human rights in Xinjiang, issues that China has viewed as the U.S. meddling in its internal affairs and wanting to constrain its rise. Chinese state media reported that President Biden said there is no reason for the two countries to fall into conflict due to competition. But this also comes amid America's chaotic withdrawal in Afghanistan, with China blaming the aftermath on Washington, questioning its reliability as a strategic partner. Both sides have also been on a charm offensive in Asia, as the U.S. has signaled a refocus to the Indo-Pacific. Olivia Xiong, CNA, Beijing.
Well, at the same time, Washington is trying to avoid competition from turning into conflict. But Joe Biden says he won't back down from pressing Beijing on human rights issues. Nick Harper joins us live. Nick, there are signs Washington is growing frustrated with the lack of progress in these high-level engagements between the two countries.
Absolutely, yes, that's right. We're told that this phone call came about because of this frustration. President Biden is exasperated, we're told, by a senior White House official. He feels that, quite simply, Beijing is unwilling to engage with the United States. He says that lower-level Chinese officials, when they meet with US partners, are unwilling to engage in substantive talks. And he doesn't see much progress in terms of the relationship, and that's why he wanted to get Xi Jinping on the phone. We know that earlier on this year, the high-level talks fell apart, really making no progress. That was when the US Secretary of State and the Defense Secretary traveled to Anchorage, Alaska, to meet with top Chinese officials. It was a very fiery meeting, lots of very fiery rhetoric coming out of it, and really no progress, because we have that whole laundry list of contentious issues. As we heard just a moment ago, President Biden is trying to take on Beijing in a way that goes above and beyond what his predecessor Donald Trump did. Trade was the big issue there. President Biden is remaining strong on that, but then there's also a whole range of human rights issues, for example, in Xinjiang, that he wants to hold Beijing to task on. Also, democracy erosion in Hong Kong, aggression in the South China Sea, and Afghanistan is now likely to be a point of contention. We're told that it was a productive phone call, a long phone call of about 90 minutes, but certainly lots in there for the two leaders to discuss. And it's unclear whether, coming out the back of this phone call, there will be much progress in terms of that relationship that President Biden feels exasperated about.
And I imagine Washington is continuing to rally allies to forge a united front against Beijing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is the real plan that President Biden laid out at the very beginning of his presidency, that he wanted to rally allies and partners to create this coalition to stand up to China. If anything, it's been slightly slowed down due to the pandemic in the 8 or 9 months since President Biden took office here in Washington. We have seen trips to the Asia-Pacific region. We just had the Vice President Kamala Harris in Singapore and Vietnam. We had the Secretary of State Anthony Blinken and the Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin a couple of months ago visiting South Korea and Japan. The president himself has not yet visited the region, but he has tried to strengthen the participation of the Quad, Japan, Australia, India. We've had that virtual summit, and it looks as if there could be an in-person summit just around the corner. In a couple of weeks' time, we're expecting the leaders of those 3 countries to travel here to Washington to meet with President Biden. It would certainly be a significant moment for those leaders to meet, but it also certainly shows that President Biden is really trying to push on this idea of pressing China and getting this coalition of allies to do so as well.
Nick Harper in Washington, D.C. Thank you.